joined here today by Lionel from Vinyl Williams. Lionel is a musician who has released a bunch of music under this project named Vinyl Williams for quite a long time, and several full-length albums, some EPs, and a bunch of singles. And he's been involved in a handful of other projects, Teal Pop and The Emerald Isle, to name a couple. And he's also involved with a lot of really cool and unique visual artwork as well. And maybe I could even add game design at this point to your repertoire of creative endeavors. So I just want to say thanks for taking the time today and letting me interview you today.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah, this is the first interview of the year and of the new album campaign, I guess. And you jumped on it, and I'm so glad you did, because this is my favorite spot too, Cafecito Organico.
Yeah.
I come here almost every day, and I've been coming here for over 10 years, and it's the place where I like to have meetings. And I don't think I've ever done a proper interview here, but it's kind of a dream come true, kind of, honestly, especially in this environment. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, pretty cool. Nice little nook we got here.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So welcome back from tour. You came back. That's really cool. How'd that go with Orion's Belt, right?
Oh yeah. It was amazing. Yeah, it was the chillest tour I've ever done in my life. It actually was. Like, the least things went wrong. Everything went to plan. Everything went right, and it was a little bit shorter than tours usually are for us. It was like 2.5 weeks, so it was just ultra chill. I mean, I could go on about that. There's so much that happened in those 2.5 weeks, but the most remarkable thing that happened was we got to stay in Midway, Utah, where I grew up, the town that I lived, that I lived for 8 or 9 years. And I haven't been back there in over a decade, and we got to stay at the Homestead Resort that has the hot springs, natural hot springs there, which I used to go to as a kid. And I actually had my first somewhat spiritual visionary experiences in those mineral baths. Just, when I was 15 or 16, I started to speak in tongues, or just do weird things, or just let myself just kind of automatically speak. But coming back there over a decade later was so crazy. It was so blissed out, because it was snowing. It was like March 6th when we were there. We had to take like another route to even get there, because it was blizzarding so bad in Utah. But I know the terrain, so we took the Provo Canyon, this back route, and to evade the blizzard, and it worked. I was looking on the Weather Channel app, and it was like there was this 1 hour window when the blizzard wasn't happening, and that's the time when we decided to go, and it worked perfectly. And we got there, and we were in the hot springs with hot chocolates, with the blizzard, the snow, the most powdery, beautiful snow you've ever imagined falling on you. It was like, just a complete full circle kind of reconciliation event, especially with all that I've been through there, and everything that I've gone through. And it's been so long since I've been there. And then it was a full transmutation of all the experiences into this really positive experience with my friends, with my band. And I've never stayed at the Homestead Resort. It's right next to my old house. And there's a natural crater there that's like, it's just a mound out of the earth. And it has like 100-foot deep natural hot springs underneath it, from a tectonic plate underneath it. And they just funnel the water out into these mineral baths, which they've renovated since I've been there, and they're absolutely incredible. So that was the most mind-blowing part of the whole trip. But that was the beginning. So it just kind of started from there. And that was a very, very good, positive beginning. It's like a resort vacation for us and the band.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just great times from there. And Orion's Belt are wonderful people, and they're amazing live. Their live show is kind of like taking a trip around the whole world. It's just like, like looking at Earth from Orion's Belt perspective, just seeing it all. And they have a very knowledgeable worldview musically, and how they play their instruments as well. It's really super interesting. So it was amazing. I got to sing a Lo Borges song with them in the last 2 shows.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite songs ever, Tutto che voce podier. I'm not sure how to say it properly, but it's one of my favorite songs of all time. So we got to, they were just playing it, and I was like, I started learning the lyrics to it in Portuguese, because I just wanted to see maybe I could sing it with them live, and I started learning it over the first week, and then I asked if I could sing it with them, and so they let me do it for the last 2 shows in Nashville and Atlanta. So that was really cool.
Super good.
Yeah, Lo Borges is great. If you haven't, he's still doing it too.
Is it a Brazilian artist?
Yeah, he's a Brazilian artist, and he's part of the Club de Esquina crew, and he just had a free mind with his compositions, free imagination, kind of thought process, making these harmonious pop songs that are just so unique and so interesting and so universal at the same time. And I emailed his manager, or I tried to email him, but his manager got back to me because I said, I'll play bass for you. I'll come and move down to Brazil to play bass with your project. And his manager was like, yeah, check out the new album. Keep in touch. We'll see what, And then he followed me. Lo Borges followed me on Instagram a couple months ago. So that was amazing.
Nice.
But I love him so much. But yeah, he's a great, big influence for me, for sure.
Awesome. Super good.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I'm actually going to pivot to what was meant to be an icebreaker question. Just
okay.
Unrelated to music, but so I've heard you talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great game. One of my favorite games. So that, like, you talked about, I was like, oh yeah, that's so cool. You talk about designing roller coasters. Mm-hmm. Does that translate into like real life? Do you have a favorite roller coaster or like favorite theme park? Do you enjoy that sort of thing, or is it just more so just like designing and just more playing the game?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. It kind of relates to a lot of overlapping realities, actually, that are kind of beyond the fantastical, that are actually real. But I would say my favorite roller coaster is Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Yeah. We happen to have Six Flags Magic Mountain just an hour north of LA, so I've been there quite a bit, but I haven't been there in a long time. But Tatsu is it's a flying roller coaster where you get the track is above you, and then the seats actually fold up, so that you don't see the track, you're just flying.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most incredible roller coasters I've ever been on. I haven't had the chance to go to a lot of the best theme parks around America, like Busch Gardens. Haven't had the chance. I've driven by it.
Yeah.
There's this one roller coaster in what is it? Gothenburg, Sweden. It's right in the middle of the city, and the whole city kind of looks like Tripoli. Like, it looks like a theme park, kind of Gothenburg, with this Gothic architecture. But there's this roller coaster right there in the city that starts on top of this hill. It starts from a high point and goes. It doesn't have a chain lift. It just goes down from there.
Oh wow!
I forgot what it's called. But on a Morgan Delt tour about 10 years ago, we had time before our set. We were playing a festival with Thundercat and Dungen. It was absolutely a dream come true playing this festival. I was just playing drums for Morgan Delt, but we had the chance to go on this very modern, kind of engineered roller coaster, extremely smooth. Unlike most American roller coasters, it was extremely smooth.
Wow.
And an enjoyable experience, and extremely surprising and exhilarating. But
sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been my. It's always been something that I kind of, I guess, escape to be creative in this infinite way.
Yeah.
By making loops, or just by making these shapes. I've always focused on the visual aspect of roller coasters, what they look like from different angles, and how the loops and how it makes these beautiful forms, kind of like crisscross linen weaving patterns.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a beautiful aesthetic, and of course the I guess my dream job has always been kind of like to be an Imagineer, like actually build rides, real rides. Our friend at Non Plus Ultra, which is a venue I help run, Mason Rothschild, his father is an Imagineer and worked for Disneyland and made some of the rides, the early dark room rides, the slow moving rides that are still there. Some of them that are pretty psychedelic, actually.
For sure.
I've working with Meow Wolf would be a dream to make some kind of interactive ride experience. I've actually worked with Meow Wolf in the past to make video game consoles with them.
Yeah.
And so it's still a dream to do that, to make a real ride that is, really exciting, but really meditative and really blissful at the same time. kind of like what
I feel like you nailed it with Find the Hidden. That's kind of the vibe I got from it. We'll talk about that in a moment. You know, it might be an appropriate time to just transition to that right now. Find the Hidden. It felt like the way I described when I first, I was one of the most creative things I had like experienced in terms of like a music video, because I was like, it's not totally just like a music video. It's like an immersive experience. It kind of reminded me of a Disneyland ride in the sense that it's taking you along this track, but you can choose where you're looking around. But it's also like a video game too. You're picking up these pieces and it's kind of a psychedelic sort of trip as well. And, you know, with Vinyl Williams music. So it's like, tell me about that process and what that was like making that video. What sort of inspired it? Anyways, go ahead.
I mean, I've only made one proper roller coaster video before this one. This one's more like it's a small world or something. And I didn't really realize that until after I made it, but somebody commented or somebody remarked to me when I showed them, it's kind of like it's a small world from Disneyland because it's a boat ride. But I love making rides, and the most attainable, free, open source way to do so is to use Unity, which is a free video game program, to make your own interactive ride experience. And I only had a week to make the video from beginning to end, to be honest. I had 1 week because we had to leave for the Orion's Belt Tour March 5th, and I just finished a video for the Slovenian band Haiku Garden a week before we left, which I was working on weeks and weeks and weeks straight to finish. And then I had 1 week to, the song was planned to come out on March 5th. And I think it's best to release a music video the same day as the song.
Yeah.
So I had a week to do it. I got
strong work.
I got everybody together.
Yeah.
I got everybody together in Non Plus Ultra. We shot it. We shot the green screen stuff in a day on the cyclorama wall we have there. And then it was up to me from those 5-6 days forward to make that boat ride game experience. There's this new program called 3D Vista. Well, it's not new, but it's pretty accessible now, but it's called 3D Vista, this new program. And you can put any video or 360 video into it, and you can put animated hotspots on top of the video that move with it that are clickable.
Yeah.
So
that's how you could collect the shells, right?
You can collect things. It's actually usually used for e-learning quizzes and for tests. The example that they gave was a construction site, and wherever you see something wrong, you press it, and then it gives you a pop-up and it gives you a point. So like you were on top of a building and there was a bunch of construction workers, but there was one guy not wearing a hard hat. So if you press on his head, then a pop-up happens, it gives you some information and it gives you a point. And so I tried the example and I was like, oh my God, you can use this to make an interactive treasure hunt.
Yeah, the applications.
Holy moly, the applications are infinite for this. You can even make multiple choice answer quizzes with grades at the end. The grade is how I made it so that when you get all 24 points in the video, then you get a secret link to the album before it's out.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look at that again. I think I only got 12 of 24. That was my best score. Nice. I was like,
it's pretty tough. I made it a little bit easier a couple days ago when I got back from the Orion's Belt Tour, because there was one that was really hard to press. That was really hard to get near the end. So I made it a little bit easier. But a lot of people have got it, have found them all though. Quite a few, I think, at least 5 or 6 that I've heard about. But
what a cool feature, by the way. Just like, hey, here's your free pass right into that. That's super neat.
Yeah, and so I had to make it so like it's essentially a grade. If you get all of the points, then you get this score. But instead of the score, it's a secret link to the album.
Yeah.
Which initially the text was too big to actually copy and paste it into your browser. So apologies for everybody that got there and then they couldn't even get to the album. But I just modified it so now you can click. Now you can see the link and it works. But
cool.
But yeah, it was a fun process to figure out 3D Vista and just to make an actual game experience with a program that's not really used for making games, but kind of hacking it in a way, using it in that way. But it can be used in any way that your mind can. It has limitations, but they didn't impede the goals that I had with making an interactive treasure hunt.
That's perfect. Yeah, use what you got.
Yeah, use what you got, and I love I Spy when I was a kid, and I just love, you know, just trying to find secret elements in this maximalistic, beautiful world. There's no conflict. It's just pure discovery, pure exploration, pure possibilities, and there's no worry that you're going to die, which happens in 99.9% of games. Even in the most blissful open world games, like this game where you're a painter and you have to sell your paintings to get from place to place. Forgot what it's called, but if you don't get a hotel, you still can't survive in the cold at night. So I've been looking for a game that you can just discover new places and decompress from your chaotic life. There's no chaos in the game. I mean, there's a lot of mystery and things, but I had to make this game for myself called Orb that I've been working on for a long time. That it's just this huge expansive world, and you just explore all the hidden areas, and you find the hidden parts of this machine, and you put them all together. When you find them, there's characters in there too that lead you to where the places are. But I've been working on that for years, and I don't know when it's going to be done, but it's a very long process to make a game yourself. But
for sure,
yeah,
very much in tune to that. But in analog games, doing some board game design stuff. So
you're doing that?
Yeah, so cool. but yeah, I'll tell you more about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's a different. But I understand all that to say. Like I understand, like it takes a long time. There's a lot of development. It's very different from writing music.
Yeah,
where I feel like with game design, in a sense, it has to function and make sense.
Right. There's a lot
with other people if they're going to interact with music. Is very much more just a true self-expression where it's just like, hey, this is who I am. This is an extension of myself. And game design can very much be that way as well, but in a different sort of sense. I don't know if you agree with that statement.
Completely agree. But pushing your creative practice to be more like what you would do for designing a board game can be very beneficial, because you're constructing your work based on the audience and based on what the audience is going to experience, and intentionally, deliberately, and functionally. Like it's not. I mean, with music, there's a lot of abstraction, and you can just allow possibilities to flourish and bloom.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fine tuning, and you can be patient with the composition process as well to make it as intentionally deliberate as possible, kind of like a game would be as well.
Yeah.
But allow for the freedom of the audience rather than trapping them in a labyrinth. Because there's a long history of games is kind of been about like a different kind of intention, where rather than it's for the intention of the audience, it's the intention is more delivered for the game company themselves to have a lot of playability. And that could be cool, but it's all been in the last few recent years. There's been a lot of video games that are really focused on intention and like, what are you really going to learn? What are you going to get out of this? What kind of empathy can this grow for you? Rather than how much time can it waste for you? So, or with games, I mean, most games are good for structuring our rational, logical abilities. So I think it's good to maybe challenge people in that way too, with our creative process too. Challenge them in that way. But yeah, I think that's really cool. Something I've always wanted to get into is board games. It's been when I was a kid, I went to some kind of summer camp and made some board games, and that was an extremely fun experience. I also made some roller coasters out of those like flexible tubes that are like used for like water piping,
like PVC.
They're not PVC, but it's like they're foam tubes. They're used for like slow drip. They're used for like water,
like a drainage system.
Yeah, or like
sewer,
watering your plants and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And you can just cut a slit in them, and then water will slowly go. But we made roller coasters with these tubes with marbles, and we tried to see how much inertia, how much velocity we can mathematically gauge for it to get as far as it can.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first experience with physics and engineering, was at that young age, even though it's something I've not really developed except theoretically. But it's always been a theme of an interest. It's always been something that comes back. So
yeah. I even just chatting with you right now, but this definitely translates through your music too, is a theme of intentionality. Sticking with Find the Hidden, some of the new material. My wife and I got to see you guys. Was it October 24 at the Surf Shop outdoor show?
With Quickly.
Yeah, yep, that's right.
Yep.
And there was a couple of songs that were in the set that I believe were new songs. I think that first track you opened with had some really lush 3-part harmonies, which I don't know if I've seen that live before in terms of the Vinyl Williams experience, right? And there was another song later on that was just super, super groovy. You know, bump, 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 something like that.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd asked Nathan, your guitarist, I was like, hey, were those some new songs? Yeah, those new songs. So cool. Like, what sort of other things can we expect on the new album? We'll talk more about the new album as we continue on, but what sort of new things can we expect musically? Like with that, Find the Hidden has some really unique things, and as well as those other songs I heard live, and that was just a one-time listen, obviously. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely want to do more 3-part, 4-part, even harmonies live, and just do full choir boy moments. And just it's something I want to just push for more background vocals and stuff. Yeah, there is quite a bit of 3-part, 4-part harmonies happening on the new hi-fi album, and then there's this other one that I'm releasing at the same time, a lo-fi album. It's gonna come out on the same day. That's very explorative and different, and there's a lot of different genre hopping and a lot of different soundscapes and different experiments, all done on cassette. But Polyhaven is the hi-fi one, and Portasymphony is the lo-fi one, because it was all done on a Porta studio. But
yeah, that was one of my questions. Yes, that was perfect.
Yeah,
great.
Yep, the whole thing was done on a 8 Tascam 8-channel Porta studio, and that was my limitation I set for myself. But the Polyhaven album, we played 2 of those songs at that show.
Okay.
And yeah, they there's that Polyhaven album, the new one. It has a lot of extremes going on. There's a lot more synths on some songs and almost no guitar on some of it, which is very different for me. And the songs with guitar are very dense, extremely shoegazy, almost overwhelming, dense kind of frequencies happening.
Yeah.
And then there's some more fun stuff that's more like, I was like, how can I get on Stone's Throw? And then I'm like, you know, that song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just, I just had
that was
the
a
thought.
groove.
I just had a thought. Was like, how can I get on Stone's Throw? And then I'm like, this song sounds like it. It just came in my head. You can just imagine like a Stone's Throw song, and it just immediately came out, no problem, And but that was the only one that was recorded fully on a reel-to-reel, which is the only time I've ever done that. Every track recorded on a tape machine, this Tascam half-inch tape machine. And there's actually one other song on the hi-fi album that's all reel-to-reel as well. It's a totally different sound. It's super textural and messed up because it was all mixed analog, and I just have a stereo bounce of that song, and there's nothing I can do. I mean, it's all analog, so it's stuck in that state, which is, you have to commit to it,
Yeah.
But it's just such a fun, free-flowing song that it can be imperfect. The recording is kind of lo-fi, actually. You'll hear it soon. It's coming out in like a month, I think. But yeah, there's a lot more extremes. The Polyhaven album sounds like a Vinyl Williams album today, with some more extremes. But the Portasymphony album is very different. There's a lot of different sounds on there.
Yeah.
A lot of pushing it to the limit of what frequencies can handle. There's a lot of explosions of dynamics that are insane, that it's just my cassette machine breaking and stuff. And
that's cool.
There's a lot of stuff going on, but it's more experimental. But I think I'm really excited about, I hope people like that one too. They'll probably like it more than the Hive one, honestly.
I'm excited to hear it. I think it's really unique. And so that you also kind of answered the question. I was curious if it was like, all right, it's a formally like 2 separate releases instead of just like a double album.
There's 2 different albums, but they're coming together in one gatefold album.
Got it. Okay.
So that it's just essentially to reduce the amount of packaging of a whole separate album, and the cost too, because if you were to buy both of them, it would be more expensive. But if you buy them both at one, it's less expensive. And they kind of, since they're releasing on the same day, they're just kind of opposite albums. So I kind of wanted them to go hand in hand with each other. It was also really fun to set up, this crazy gatefold vinyl artwork with this fold out spread, and it has a lenticular hologram on the front cover with 9 angles of different images of perception. So when you twist it, it actually twists the whole 3D world in the view. So it really looks like it's twisting. But the holograms that I've made are just like 2 images or 3, but this is 9 different angles, so it's going to look really crazy. So I've been spending a lot of time just making a wacko package, just
cool. Looking forward to
yeah,
it.
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that sounds really, really cool and unique. I wanted to ask, so I mentioned in the introduction that you've just created a ton of music. It's pretty apparent, and especially considering other projects that you're involved with, and even other things that aren't even that, helping people mix or master their stuff and just everything. You're very prolific. You're constantly creating. When you're not touring, what's a day in the life look like for you? How much time are you spending on writing music? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, it's seasonal. There's certain times of the year I make more music, and certain times of the year, like this time of the year, where I'm having to do more work for other people, which is generally visual work or sound work. But lately, I'm working on a festival design for Fascinoma. It's like a drum and bass festival in Mexico, and working on finishing another music video for another artist and stuff. So there's certain times of the year where a general day is like working on these projects for other people, booking the bands that I book. I book
Right.
6 or 7 bands, answering those emails and following up with the booking of my own project and the things that are associated with my stuff. And but there's certain times of the year, usually around the holidays, like the end of the year, where I dedicate that whole time to making music. And it's not the whole time. I mean, I kind of have to strobe between different things as well, but usually I try to get into the flow of, setting a whole 6 to 8 hour workday of working on music around certain times of the year. And doing that, you're kind of destined to get a lot of stuff done when you spend that much time. And I usually dedicate entire days to entire songs, so that by the end of that day, that song is really far along. Like just spending that, even being patient with it, not rushing it or not forcing it, just seeing what happens over those 6 to 8 hours. You'll have it very close to being finished, or just to the time that you're spending with it. And if not too, that's totally fine. But just dedicating that time has been even if it's just for one day of the week, like I'm going to dedicate this day for this song, and then I'm going to try to finish it or get the vocals done or get the whole foundation of it done. And then maybe it'll take another day or two of dedication to get the vocals and the mix far along. I kind of do the math in my head. I'm like, how many days is it going to take straight of me to finish this album?
Yeah.
Like, if you have like 10 songs that you've recorded that are all not done, maybe none of them have vocals on them yet. I just do the math in my head. I'm like, okay, it's going to take at least 10 days, one day per each song, finishing those, writing and recording those vocals of all the songs. And then another 10 days where I mix each song. It takes about a day, solid full day, and then many days afterwards of revisions to mix each song. So I'm like, okay, it'll take a month to finish this. So I just have to find that time, even if it goes over the course of several months, just scheduling that time to those songs and those and being very regimented in like, oh, I'm going to work on this song this day, and I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do for that.
It's that intentionality.
And like, usually I come there without the lyrics written, and I'll just come to the studio and I'll start writing out the lyrics and start figuring out how it's going to fit with the melody and sitting with it for hours, and just taking a break outside in the sun and then coming back to it. And about every hour, I just take a step away, take away and just have peace and nothingness. And I come back to it with the freshness. It's all about that strobe as well for me to step away at least every hour and then come back to it. There's something about that that's very important too, getting a fresh perspective throughout the day. And yeah, just it's hard to find the time to dedicate, especially now because I'm doing all this other work for other people, and I'm not really in the mode of making new music right now, even though I have all these ideas.
It never stops.
The voice memos are piling up right now.
It never stops.
I'm like, how am I gonna do these? How am I gonna go through these and make these? I don't know. I'm gonna have to dedicate a month or something to do it, but it's I'm in the process of moving my studio as well, so I currently don't even have a studio. I've been in a totally other mode. this whole year. So I've just been accepting that process.
Yeah.
And but now actually is going to be the time in this month. I'm going to be recording more Teal Pop stuff with Marina.
Cool.
So it gives me a chance to get my studio together. I'm moving into my friend John's garage and I'm getting that set up at the end of this month, and then we're going to do some more Teal Pop stuff, and then that'll get me more on the musical flow again, to be able to make some more original stuff that I've had in my head and the voice memos I have. There are a few that are like, they keep coming back into my head.
Yeah.
And those ones are good. And I'm like, I record them and it's like, this is the third voice memo of the same melody I've made.
Yeah.
And I have to mark it being like, that's the one. That's the memorable. That's the one that keeps coming back.
Yeah.
So I have to make that one,
For sure. Yeah. So you talked about voice memos. This kind of goes a little bit backwards on the theme of writing music, but so you'll come with voicemail. It sounds like you have like a melody or whatever, but are there times where there's like a guitar line that comes to you or a bass part, like, or maybe a beat?
Yes.
Like, are there specific things that like, what does that look like? Is it pretty spread out amongst those, or is there usually a common theme in like what initially inspires the thrust of a new song? Like it's a vocal melody or something. What's that process look like? How's a song usually begin?
The best songs have begun with a melody just coming into my head. And when you start singing a melody in your head, you don't know when you started it generally, but it's like, what is that? It's like there's a melody repeating in your head and it's original. And you're like, what? Those are the best ones where you record. You're not even making the song. It's just you're passively listening to a melody. Sometimes it's a bass melody. Like I've been driving on the 101 for years. I was hearing bass melodies in my head that sounds like the Ventura Highway by America, which is the freeway that I was on.
Yeah.
There's a bass line in that song that I heard. There's almost an identical bass line before realizing it was that song. That was really weird, but yeah, the best ones are a melody or a bass melody, but sometimes there's a totally different process where I'll be sitting there being like, what song should I make? What song could I make right now? Which is a totally different thing. It's not coming into you. You're imagining it. And in that, I could hear drums, bass, and chords. Like what I heard with this new song that's not out yet called Extra Life. I just heard it like all these chords.
Yeah.
I wish I could sing polyphonically so I could hear it.
No, I remember it live. So I
heard these like you could just hear it. Like imagine like a song like a great exercise is what do I want to listen to right now that doesn't exist? You'd be like, if I could listen to anything right now, what would it be? Boom, you're going to think of a song that doesn't exist. And it's like, that's the best thing. I wish I could listen to that right now, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But it's like it's just something in your mind. It might sound like other things, but it's something in your mind that you thought of. And so that's an active form of imagination and composition where you can like think of this thing, try to figure it out on just one instrument, a piano, bass, guitar, just figure out what key it's in so you can remember, figure out just the simplest thing of it, record that so you don't forget, and then you can build on that. You can start expanding on that, My problem is with memory. I have a very bad short-term memory and a very bad memory. So if I don't record it, if I don't get it down, it could just be gone forever. Even in the process of doing it, I'll forget an idea that came to me and I'll try to reach back for it and try to find it. And it's tough, but you gotta definitely, it takes some focus in those moments and not letting go of the possibilities. You're like, oh, that could be a cool thing, but whatever. Don't say whatever. Like, actually make that possibility into a thing. Put it into the structure as potential. It doesn't have to be fixed that way, but put it down so that it's something that you thought of that you wrote down and documented. Because once you write it down or make a small recording of it, all of a sudden it's solidified into something that you can revisit, and it's like almost basically tangible at that point, running through the matter of the computer, running through the matter of the cassette, running through the matter of the page of the paper of the circuit board of your phone becomes tangible at that point. And it's very important that it does become form initially, even if it's the stupidest, littlest sketch of it. That is
sometimes important. Sometimes that's super important.
Super important. Yeah.
I didn't have this written down as something that I was going to ask, but I really want to ask this right now. It came as we're talking. Have you ever had music? So it sounds to you like, hang on, before I spit this question out, it sounds to me like a lot of time you'll have these sort of fully produced pieces of music. Sometimes it's partial, like a melody or whatever, but sometimes it's a full piece of music, bass, drums, all the rest of it, right? Do you ever have dreams where you have music almost kind of channeled to you? And the second part of this question is, because I've struggled with this myself, I'm a musician, I make music as well, but like, who gets credit for that music? Because I'm not actively trying to do it, like, but where's that coming from? You know, do you ever, does that, first of all, does that ever happen? Second of all, what do you sort of do with that if it does happen?
I would have the same question because I have such bad memory of my dreams. I dream, but it's very hard for me to recall them.
Yeah.
And I very rarely recall them as musical.
Okay.
But people tell me all the time they'll dream of me with music happening or with their grandparents singing with them, us in a water cave. All these crazy dreams, incredible dreams that people have of me that are not mutually experienced by me, but they sound like our raw resonance of our relationship being expressed in the dream world, like untainted by our life or our experience or anything. It's just our raw resonance in the dream world that we experience in these shared states. Like, and I attribute it to the actual music of our birthdays, of that playing out in its most raw form in the dream state. Like, if you're tritones with somebody born 6 months apart and you dream of them, the dreams might be super otherworldly and mysterious and kind of triggering, and maybe things will go wrong a lot in the dreams. They might be a little bit stressful or really fun and irrational, because that's your relationship, and that it's expressed in its purest form in the dream state. I personally don't dream of music, and if I do, I don't remember it. Actually, that's a lie. That's a total lie. I wake up with a song in my head every morning, but it's rarely my song. It's always a song that exists in the world.
Okay.
It's always the music I've been playing the previous day, the music that's been in my head. I wake up. I'm always actually looping a song in my dreams, or multiple songs that are out there in the world, but not a lot of new music coming to me in the dreams. And if it does, I can't process it and I can't remember it.
Yeah.
I'm very hard for me to remember my dreams specifically. Was doing a dream journal for a while, and I want to start it again. Yeah. I was doing it intermittently and it did help. And I want to start that up again so I can access. I know. Do you happen to lucid dream yourself at all?
It's happened a handful of times throughout my life, and it's not like, sometimes it's like as exciting as you might imagine it would be, but sometimes just kind of like, oh, I'm dreaming right now, like, oh, whatever, you can wake yourself up or whatever, but not super frequently. But maybe a handful of times, maybe a dozen times over my life, I feel like I've had one of those. But plenty of musical dreams. But I know a lot of people.
That's super interesting. You have musical dreams.
Yeah, all the time.
My friend Sam, a few of my friends have also had really musical dreams. They're hearing a full orchestra of impossible, beautiful music. It's not something that I really experience. But then again, I really am cut off from the lucid dreaming aspect of my mind. I've had very few experiences in my life where I'm metaphysically aware in the dreams, which is so weird because I feel like I can be pretty self-aware when I'm awake of my faults specifically, and be like, okay, look, I'm imperfect, I'm self-aware. But in the dreams, I just accept it. I'm so gullible, I'm so literal. I'm a very literal person. In the dreams, I always accept it as real. Even if it's insane circumstances or in things I know can't be happening, I fully accept it as it's happening.
Yeah.
I never question it. And I've experienced music in dreams too, but it's beyond my ability to process it. But I think that's incredible that I've met tons of people that they wake up and they try to sing the melody. It's very difficult. They try to, because it's polyphonic, obviously. It's a lot of chords, very maximalistic. Yasos, one of my favorite musicians of all time, would have dreams of huge choirs, so many octaves beyond what we can even hear, he said, of just angelic choirs modulating in crazy chords, and to be able to remember that. I mean, if you have it helps with music theory knowledge or jazz music study. It can help you recall and hear, and being able to hear the intervals can help, I think, when you hear it in your dreams, actually be able to transcribe it and figure out what it is on an instrument. And I'm not really, I can hear intervals. But it's tough to, I would have to go right to an instrument right when I wake up to be able to, and if I were to wake up with incredible music in the morning that I remember, it would be my duty, I feel like, to put that down. As difficult as it might be, being groggy when you're first waking up, if that were to happen, which really hasn't ever happened, even though I wake up with like, what did I wake up with this morning? Jim Sullivan, UFO. Okay. I woke up because that's what we were playing. We were playing Jim Sullivan's demos and stuff on the drive back from Atlanta through the desert near Albuquerque, where he disappeared. We were playing. Jim Sullivan is like a 60s folk artist that had the Wrecking Crew playing with him, and he went out to Albuquerque on his way to Nashville in 1975 and disappeared in the middle of the desert. Nobody knows what happened. We were listening to a podcast about it. We were listening to his music, so it was in my head, the whole lore around it, the story. So I woke up this morning with his song UFO in my head. So it's interesting, who knows what's happening in your dreams. Like, I feel like one song is on loop for the entire night, like even a section of it or the whole thing, and it keeps repeating, and somehow that doesn't bother me, and the mind is perfectly comfortable just letting this music wash over you and loop through time. So
our subconscious minds, I feel like, are very underratedly powerful.
Oh my goodness.
Just it's that's kind of personally what I always chalk it up to. I'm like, well, it's just my subconscious kind of figuring it out and mulling it over. There's so many things in our conscious state that we're dealing with that sometimes we don't have time to sort it all out. So leave it to our subconscious mind. I don't know. That's kind of my take on it, but
absolutely, that's what maybe the negative space is great for, is for allowing the subconscious to process all of the conscious experience and everything. And because it just can't be all going all the time, it needs to have some negative space, whatever that may be.
To breathe.
And then it just, I think that strobe, that undulation between the not doing and then the active doing, it just makes for coral reefs. Because how do coral reefs exist? Just through the undulation of the ocean, if you go to an aquarium or a museum or a SeaWorld or something and you see a coral reef, they always have these huge undulating waves to create the coral reef, even if it's in a small contained environment. So all you need is undulation to get life, essentially. So you find your own undulation, and then you can almost create living creative works that are like living, breathing things through that, like coral reefs. Like you're creating coral reefs, musical coral reefs with your undulation patterns.
That's very cool. Very cool. Something else I want to touch on. This kind of shifts gears slightly away from the creative process, but to the live performance. A number of years ago, I got to see you after the Opal release. What's the venue? It doesn't matter. But you're still room? No, not the Lodge Room.
The Echo or the Echo?
Yep, the Echo. There it is. Mm-hmm. Gosh, why couldn't I remember that? Anyway, so you're still on guitar and playing synth, and since then you switched over to bass, and that was a number of years ago now. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask, because in going back to that theme of intentionality, I feel like more than any other instrument, it's all very intentional, but the bass parts within your music are very specific, very detailed, and very intentional. Now, transitioning to playing bass and doing vocals live, what was that transition like for you? Was it difficult? Were there challenges to that? Talk about that a little bit.
At first I was wondering if I can even pull it off, because when I'm recording a song, I just want the bass to fill in all the possibilities, to go as many places, hinge on in as many ways as it possibly can, to change the chord of what's happening,
right?
To make these weird chords that you don't even know I don't know what they are until I get frisson. I wait for this moment until my body gets this sinking feeling, not sinking, but like SYNC, sinking feeling.
Syncs together.
And I get frisson, or I feel it in my neck or my arms, and I'm like, that's a really weird chord. And it's all in contrast to the chord before it and after it. But you can just, using the bass to bring weirdness and augmentation into the chords. And I'm just obsessed with that. And every note of the bass on the recordings must be played live the same way.
They're very specific and very detailed, yeah.
Because without it, it's just not the same chords. And then the melody, even the vocal melody, might be different, might feel different over that different chord. So it's super. I'm super over the top with how the bass fits. And Billy, my previous bassist, would play every single note that I recorded. He's an actor, and he's phenomenal at remembering his lines. Phenomenal. And he would remember, there's a song, Axiomatic Mind, from Into, the second album. I improvised the bass part the entire way through. There is not a single repeating thing. He learned every single, even though it wasn't extremely necessary, it is kind of, and he learned every single note through, which is maybe thousands of notes sequenced, So he knew, Billy Winger, props to him. He knew how it is necessary, maybe. But yeah, when I started switching to bass, when I got a new group together, when I got Spooky and Nathan, and initially Sam Shmoo on drums, then Eric Werner shortly joined afterwards. But it was kind of like during the COVID time period that happened, because there weren't shows happening anyway. And I was recording the Emerald Isle in my house with Craig, who moved in with me in my house.
Yeah.
And we were just recording a bunch. I was playing a lot of bass. And I kind of started practicing playing bass and singing a bit, like during COVID, and just seeing if I could do it. And just whenever I had a moment. And I just used that time, that negative space, to become better at bass and singing, kind of. And then when Lodge Room did this thing in 2021, which was like not a live show experience, but it was a recorded show, because it was still before shows were being allowed to happen again during COVID. But they were doing this thing. Restless Nights created this whole thing where it was like, just for the artists, just for getting their stuff out there. They had a whole series where they just did live recordings of bands on the Lodge Room stage, and it was the first any kind of live recording or live thing that was done in a couple years since COVID. And that was the chance for me to be like, okay, let me try to play bass and sing. And we're only doing 4 songs, so let's see if this could work together in this arrangement. And it felt great. And I was able to get the tone that I always wanted with the bass as well, with me playing it, getting the right action and getting every single line and every detail in there that I wanted live.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe I should maybe this is right for moving forward. But I'm not stuck on it either. I'm totally open to switching it up again in the future, for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to play guitar. I was going to go back to how it used to be on this last tour with Orion's Belt, because Nathan couldn't do it.
Right.
My guitarist. So I was trying to see, maybe I should play guitar and Eric should play bass, or because Eric's the only person I know, Eric Warner, that could learn all my songs on bass, because he plays bass in the Emerald Isle.
Yeah.
He learned every single note, every single song perfectly. He's amazing. Great memory. And I was thinking about it, but just for the budget, I kept it a 3-piece, which is the first time I've ever done that. Stayed on bass. But yeah, I think I'm going to stay on bass for a while. But it was difficult to learn how to sing and play, and I had to separate the hemispheres of my brain to be like, what I did actually is I ended up doing an exercise where I would go pluck 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 so that when I'm plucking and I'm singing, they're on opposite beats.
Yeah.
And that trained my brain to not need to sing when I'm plucking, so I can sing on the upbeats of when I'm playing.
Yeah.
So the rhythm of my voice can be completely different than the rhythm of the bass, without it messing with my head. So I had to separate the hemispheres of my brain to do that, kind of.
Yeah.
It took years.
It's like it's like drums, kind of like, and I know you play drums too. It's like that limb independency, like
yes,
when you're, you know, or like 16th notes on the hi-hat and you're trying to incorporate different kick patterns. And it's just that separation of mind, like you talked about. It's
absolutely.
Like, it's, yeah. So I was very curious about that, to see what that transition has been like. Yeah, props to you for pulling it off. That's,
yeah, I was like, you know, I had to, because there's a lot, I continue to not care about if the bass part is the same rhythm of the voice. If it's possible to play the bass part and sing it, I don't care when I'm recording it. I don't think about that at all.
Cool.
I make it as difficult as possible for myself, without even thinking about it. But like, to be able to do it, there are some songs like the song Talaculum off of Cosmopolis where the bass is just going crazy the whole time.
Yeah.
In different rhythms than the vocals. And I had to like really be at peace with myself and close my eyes to practice that over and over again, to try to get the rhythm in my brain to separate. And just, I think just practice makes perfect. And that song really was challenging. And once I was able to learn that one, then anyone seemed pretty simple after that. So, you know, batting with irons on or something helped. Walking with ankle weights or something, that one kind of did that for me. And so now I feel like I have separation, but it just takes some years of practice. That exercise of plucking and singing on the opposite beats, even just going boom, 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 even just that will separate your brain.
Yeah.
You know, and try to create a melody like that just for practice that is on opposite beats of where you're plucking. And just by doing that, you'll be like, oh, I don't need to sing when I'm playing, and you can separate it in your brain.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody could do it just with practice. So
that's cool. Yeah, it's kind of like sounds like you hit a threshold and you're like, cool, this like, it's coming to me a lot easier now, and it's a lot more manageable.
Yeah,
that's
now
cool.
I feel like I can play most bass parts and sing completely different melodies and be comfortable with the separation. So it's taken a long time, but maybe now that I've gotten there, it's time to switch it up again. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, you have that luxury, you know, multi-instrumentalist, so you got to take your pick.
Yeah, someday I'll play drums live, maybe.
Yeah, that would be something.
I'd love to switch just for like a couple songs. It'd be great to do that, you know, when I have more resources.
Yeah, for versatility purposes, you know. So a guy gets sick or something like that, you know, on tour, hop in.
Yeah.
Let me shift focus to a topic. I want to talk about the intersection of sustainability and merch. Right. You've talked, maybe as other interviews, or you could have posted on Instagram. I'm not sure. I don't exactly remember, but I know that you've talked about using sustainable inks with your merch, t-shirts and stuff like that. What sort of things have you maybe seen other artists do, other independent artists, or what other things would you like to incorporate moving forward, or maybe just in the grand scheme of things, just the independent music scene in general, really to more firmly embrace sustainability in the way they approach merch?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's many little things you could do, I could say, that are beneficial and sustainable. First off, I feel like, you know, it's good not to defeat yourself through the idea of sustainability, or the idea of doing something creative or irrational is you just have to start by validating your irrational creative process as something that you need to spend resources on. And that's something that it's going to take resources, and it's not going to be sustainable ultimately, maybe, or it's going to be difficult. So it's a challenge to make your creative process fully sustainable or sustainable at all. But, you know, like, still, the creative act and, you know, artistic expression and music, and how the ripple effects and implications that causes is well worth it. And it's all about finding the little things to make it more sustainable, you know. Like I must admit that touring in general, you know, it's not a sustainable venture in terms of resources specifically, or the usage of resources. And there are a lot of things you can do to make it more sustainable. I've actually been trying to get a VW sponsorship, like, seriously, because they have an electric bus that they just released, and it's Vinyl Williams VW.
Yeah,
you know, I actually have German
some branding in there
too, from, you know, my family is Jewish from Germany, so my mom's side. So, you know, reparations. I don't know. But I was like, give me this spot so I can have this electric bus and then not have to use gas on tour. That's like that's my ultimate goal, is to not have to use fossil fuels to tour. And
Right.
that, to talk about other independent artists that have taken this to the next level. Radiohead, in their last years of touring, would only tour on boats.
I wasn't
They
aware of that.
only
That's cool.
toured on boats. And, they did it extremely sustainably. They didn't take any jets or very few car rides. They tried to encourage using public transportation for the audience to get to their shows. Incredibly eco-conscious. Radiohead, I would say, takes the cake for being the most eco-conscious band I know about. And I think there's rumors of them doing shows again, possibly, or getting back together. I'm not sure.
I haven't heard that.
I don't know. It's just, I feel like the Radiohead really altered the landscape of music forever with the harmony that they kind of I guess trusted within themselves, as something that is true rather than manipulative, with a creative act, doing something that's true from your heart rather than trying to control people or manipulate an audience into thinking that you're great or that you're awesome.
Right.
Just pure, beautiful expression of
Yeah.
of harmony, and melancholy too, of that foggy British melancholy, but
Yeah, just being authentic.
And just, letting the sounds that you want to hear in your body and in your mind come through, despite what other people think, despite what the people around you or your parents or what popular opinion enjoys. Just whatever you think, whatever gives you frisson is actually universal frisson. It gives other people similar effects.
Yeah.
But back to sustainability, you can make a lot of little choices, like you mentioned about the inks. I've been using LADTG printing services the last few years. Is an Argentinian business in East Los Angeles. It's the closest silk screen printing and direct to garment printing lab near my house in East LA. So it's just the closest. I found it on Apple Maps because I was like, what's the closest place to me? And happened to find him. And he happens to use only water soluble inks, which are not acrylic based. So there's no plastics used at all on the inks. So you don't have to use, plastic resources. He doesn't have to stock massive amounts of plastics, which are, which are the biggest issue, I think, right now with, our ecological issues and hazards with our earth that I think about, especially with the plastics. I refuse to use plastic as much as possible. I use my tumbler. I've been trying to make initiatives in Echo Park, LA, to give $1 to $2 discounts at cafes for bringing your own tumbler.
Yeah.
Even if there are health issues with it, but individuals can take it upon themselves to sanitize to the utmost with their tumblers and everything. But I've been trying to work with the local city council in Echo Park to make these initiatives to add recycling bins at all gas stations in America. There's no recycling bins at any gas station. They're all regular. Why not? It's a simple thing to separate, or have a compost bin as well, so that the food is not thrown away and put in the landfill and created all the methane. Put it in a compost bin. I've been trying to create separate bins at gas stations for years. It's been really hard to go through the process.
Yeah. A lot to it.
Yeah, but not using acrylics. I've been using water soluble inks, which usually are not as bright, but this guy has mastered this LADTG printing. I can't recommend it enough because they've mastered the art of water soluble printing. And you can do many layers, a base layer, 2 or 3 layers on top. And you can, use water soluble inks. That's better for the environment. And with my records at this point, I refuse to use shrink wrapping plastic on it. I only use non-resealable sleeves with no shrink wrapping,
Cool.
so that dust doesn't get on it. So it's just the thinnest it could possibly be. I think about that a lot. I think about the shrink wrapping. I hate shrink wrapping.
Yeah.
And it sucks that that it's on everything. I wish it wasn't. There are maybe reasons why, but the Chinese just invented, or was it South Korea just invented, a plastic that degrades in the water.
Yeah.
In a few hours, I believe.
Yeah,
so this needs to be the new norm with all plastics. It needs to be turned into this biodegradable compound quickly, immediately, I hope. And I hope it gets into the industries, that the creative industries, especially film and TV, art, set design, production, where so many things are destroyed and so many resources are just used for temporary sets and then they're gone. I wish these things were more, biodegradable, obviously. And there's so many things you could do, little choices that you can make with your whole package of your work. I try to use as little resources as possible with my whole project. Gas is probably the most thing that is used with any kind of work. And the last couple years has been a chance for me to drive less, to attempt to have my workplace be closer to my house. I don't have to drive as much, walk more, not just try to be, only drive when I need to. Even though touring is all about driving and so many resources are used, it's ridiculous. Actually, it feels insane to be a touring musician, feels psychotic, but still, you have, it is an existential question for me too, to do what, to do this. Honestly, I have to doubt you obviously want to doubt what you're doing, what you do, but I think there's no way to measure it, but I think that you have to focus on the qualitative implications and the effects that are beneficial that come from the work, and it's good not to tour unless it's going to be good. Like if you're doing a support tour, that's great. If you're an emerging band, you get on a support tour with a bigger artist, it's already set up, there's going to be tons of people there. It's gonna, the effects, the energetic effects and implications will outweigh the resources that are being used. There's no way to qualitatively measure that, but I think it's tough to get started when you're beginning touring as an emerging artist. I think support tours are best because if you're doing it yourself, it's tough to get. You have to do it for a long time, and it's hard to do that sustainably. You start small, start doing small tours in your local area and start spiraling out from there. And getting on support tours is better because of just the less resources used and more output gained. So it can be justified, I feel like, more sustainably with those. But doing your own headline tours is a better way to be sustainable economically for yourself. You'll maybe make more money, even as a small emerging band, if you plan it right. Book it yourself. I do it. I've been booking it myself for a long time. Plan it right. Get the community together. Get the local groups together that has your similar sound, and get the community engaged and reach out to a lot of people. Get a lot of people together and have a great time at these places. And if you do, 12, 14, 15 shows in a row, it can actually pay for itself and be sustainable, and so it's possible. Like Marina booked a Teal Pop tour. She's a great booking agent, by the way. She's phenomenal. She does what we were the same. We're perfect fifths in the music of our birthdays, so we're so similar in some way. We do the same things.
Cool.
We're like kind of mirrors, but she booked a small West Coast tour for Teal Pop. We're completely unknown, playing. We're headlining. We're playing with local bands every night. I am a booking agent. I did the math. I was like, we're going to lose money on this. Marina, this is irrational. We're going to lose money on this tour. Why are we doing this? We're not known. She booked it so well with such good local bands, got such a good community of people together in each individual city. We made money on the tour.
Nice.
We actually were in the green on our first tour ever because she booked it right. You got to go all in on all you got to do. Reach out to as many people as possible. Get everybody together, and you lift each other up. You lift the locals up. You lift the local bands up. They're looking for an outlet to play. And you just have fun together, and you just, and it's it takes a lot of work. And Marina's great at putting in the extra effort. Sometimes I don't even have the ability to get a promoter and to get, the radio slots and get ticket giveaways and all this extra stuff. It's an insane amount of work. But it's not impossible. It just takes just some dedication of some hours for the day. You can, and it's all emailing, so it's not like you're doing crazy manual labor or anything. So.
Yeah, for sure. Coming from that world, so
totally. And it's a getting an electric bus would be a dream. Getting a solar powered plane would be a dream. Spooky is about to get his beginner's pilot license. Who's in my band, and I'm going to start beginner's pilot license school because I already have 20 hours logged of beginner's flight training, so I could apply those to the hours, hopefully. But the dream would be to fly our own solar powered plane around the country, around the world, and we're the pilots, you know.
Yeah, wasn't that the singer of Iron Maiden? Wasn't he always flying them around?
That would be, you know, only because if you're flying a plane or a jet, you're going to use more resources than if you're driving.
Of course,
because of the wind resistance, it's using more gas. So
right,
the slower you go, the less resources you use. Yeah. You know? So props to Martin Newell from Cleaners from Venus for always touring on bicycle his entire career.
Oh wow!
In England, he refused. He refused to do a legitimate tour anywhere in the world. He only, I think they did actually in Europe and in the late 80s and early 90s a little bit, but for the bulk of his career, he just got on his bicycle with stuff on his back and rode his bike to the next venue.
Love it. Minimalist.
Yep, that's right. Martin Newell has such an amazing perspective on sustainability and authenticity of being an artist, and just focusing on the music, the craft, the work, and your life, having a beautiful life, and you know, just I think having some validation is critical, but he seems to be very post-validation kind of person. It's cool to get yourself into that kind of mindset, you know. A lot of people have said that when you no longer need it, you'll receive it, you know. And I haven't even gotten there yet. So, but, you know, I still need quite a bit of validation. I have some insecurities. So.
It's all good. I feel like it's a pretty common experience for humans.
That's what you do. You were validating me by doing this. So thank you.
Well, good. No, I was like, hey, allows me an opportunity to grow too. It's cool. Very thankful for the time. Yeah,
it really makes me feel good. So thank you to know that somebody that you have these questions. You know, that
awesome
that anybody has these questions is mind blowing. So thank you.
It's cool. Well, you shared a great your artwork is great, and it's really just kind of blessed a lot of people. I know that's like I could speak for our family. My wife and my 2 daughters, we regularly spin the vinyl records at our house. Right. You know, it's cool. They enjoy it. They know the songs. My daughter was humming Find the Hidden like all day, you know, all the time. It's cool. You know what I mean? That's awesome. So it's a blessing. So thank you for that. And I know that I can speak for many people in saying that it's cool. We live in a great time where a lot of wonderful artists exist, and it's super cool. Yeah, for sure. As we're kind of landing the plane here, we're landing the solar powered plane. Right? As we're landing the plane here, I just want to ask what's going on for the remainder of this year. Anything else you want to plug about the album? What's the rest of this year look like for you?
Well, we just announced the Gold Celeste tour in July. It's their first ever tour in the United States, and they're from Norway. I've been a huge fan of theirs for 10 years or so since they released The Glow, their first album. And this is the 10-year anniversary of their first album.
Yeah.
And I think I found them... I think... Okay, it's funny because I just released a song called Celestial Gold. And I think I was looking it up to see if it actually was released on Spotify. And then I found Gold Celeste by typing it in.
Yeah, I wonder if there was a connection there. So I'm glad you're touching on that right now.
Well, I was like, "Who's that? Who's Gold Celeste?" And I listened to them, and I was so blown away by them sounding exactly how I wanted them to sound.
Yeah,
with the name and how similar we sound actually, and how soft and feminine Simon's vocals are in Gold Celeste. I resonated with that so heavily, and I was like, oh my god, I found my brethren here. I found my brews, you know. I found my guys here. And I think I reached out to them pretty quickly after that. We've been in touch for years, probably 8 years now. I just told them I love their stuff, and I hope that we could do a show together one day. And guess what? We actually did a show in Oslo, Norway together.
Nice.
They opened up for us, which was I really wanted them to headline because they're just one of my favorites of all time. And it's their hometown, but they hadn't played a show in 3 or 4 years. It was after COVID. It was 2022. And we played in Oslo with them, and It's the first show in a long time, and their set was absolutely, it was mind blowing to see them live. It was just life affirming, and to play a show with them, it was just incredible. And they posted on Instagram like 6 months ago saying, "Hey, we're looking for a U.S. booking agent because we really want to come to the States." And I commented and said, "Gotcha, I got you." So I said, and then
say less.
and then I sent them an email. I was like, "Hey, I started my booking agency like a year ago, so I could do this for you guys. Let's do it." And I've been planning it ever since, and just announced it 2 days ago on Friday, and it's happening July 9th to July 27th, 2025 this year. And that's a big deal because it's the first international band I've ever booked.
Cool. Yeah.
And I'm going through the whole process of the visas right now, which is really, really, I'm having to do it actually, which is it's incomprehensibly difficult actually. So
I can only imagine.
It's very difficult, and we're doing everything we can. We're working with another company too to try to make sure it's correct. It's just within the window of time of us being able to do it. So fingers crossed that everything works out.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to be doing everything we can to make it happen. But yeah, so that's happening, and there's the album's coming out right before that, June 13th.
Yep, Friday the 13th.
Is it a Friday? Yeah, Friday the 13th.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah, interesting day. It was going to be June 6th, but it got changed. It was somebody with my team wanted to change it to June 13th, so I was totally cool with that. I'm like, interesting day, but I'm cool with that. I've tried a lot of different release dates in the last couple of years based on its resonance with my birthday to see if it works better or worse, because it's like my musical horoscope or your musical horoscope. Certain times of the year are good for certain things and other things, it's your resonance with yourself. And I've been trying to make certain decisions based on that, but this date I would be a major sixth musically with myself, or a minor third. So it's kind of like my conception date. It's almost the day that I was conceived by my parents.
Right.
So it seems kind of like a good day to release something. Maybe it's just an experiment. I'm just trying something else out now to see how it works. I don't know. I don't know if it really affects it or not. But
that's great. Hey, it's entering the world exactly when it's supposed to.
Yeah, I think
there's something cool about that. It's like,
right.
That's the day. It's like setting. Well, maybe not set in stone. I mean, you can change that if you wanted to, I guess.
Yeah.
But chosen that date and moving forward based on that. And
exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
it's going to meet people right where they are at.
It's weird when it does meet people right where they're at the time that it's needed. It's very strange how things occur like that, and you have no idea how things line up for people and the synchronicities that occur. It's incredible that the comments I see that people leave, like on the Find the Hidden video. Somebody said, it's always something so tragic and extreme, but also the sublimation of that. Somebody said that right when I released the video, like an hour before that, somebody got into a really tragic car accident, and they were sitting in the hospital, I believe, waiting in line for hours. And then I released the interactive video game video, and they spent the hours in the waiting room trying to beat the game of the Find the Hidden video.
They'll always remember that too.
Right.
That's one of those things like that. That's not one of those things where, I forgot that happened. Like they'll always connect that to that. And that was like a key moment.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. I love when stuff like that happens. It's really neat.
That's why we do it. It's like,
totally.
It's like, it's a very, it's hopefully it can be potentially a very beneficial form of not just escapism, but of healing or some kind of decompression from life, and also hopefully learning about what's happening in our reality, the newest findings, the newest concepts we have of theoretical physics and of the unified field, which is the vacuum of space-time, or how the galactic meets the quantum, and all of these concepts that we've been dealing with for the last 100 years in humanity, actually, but really trying to get them out onto the surface of more of our thought processes collectively. That seems to be the concepts that interest me. But I think it can help explain and provide a lot of hope to the world, to everybody, if you really understand how things work, or you start to understand. No human understand how things work, but we're beginning to get whiffs of how things are working. And I just look at the pattern and I see, leisure ability, quality of life, and those kind of those kind of things just getting better as time moves forward into the future. If you go into the past, just gets life gets more tough. You have more survivalist. It is debatable that maybe that was a higher quality of life, but you had a lot of things that determined if you survived or not. That took a lot of effort on everybody's part. Nowadays, we can live much simpler, easily, without as much manual labor. And I mean, back in the day, men used to build temples and stuff and palaces, and now we do different things. But it's okay that we are entering a time of less physical labor and more intellectual, more concepts based in our expansion of our awareness and our wisdom and everything. And I think I think things are moving towards order. Even if it seems like things are insane and always becoming chaotic, and tangible things crumble and decay, and our bodies crumble and decay, and our houses crumble and decay. But all intangible things, music, art, wisdom, our collective concepts, move towards greater systems of order and organization. Even galactic systems, solar systems, planetary systems are moving towards higher states of attunement, I believe, if you look at the pattern over time as well. And it's a hopeful fact if we could look at these patterns and think less nihilistically about the future, less existentially, and embrace the positive evolution and growth that's forced upon us and all biology, maybe, and all spiritual beings, maybe, and embrace the growth and, go along for the ride, willingly, with it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, one thing's for sure, it's all very complex. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and it is. And I mean, our organism has quadrillions of atoms on one human body, maybe quintillions of atoms. We have trillions of cells on our body, and every cell has trillions of atoms. So
mind-boggling.
You could say that it's a normalized function of infinity on one human body. Normalized as in capped. That one human body is a finite expression of infinity mathematically, because you cannot count how many atoms are on your body. And that is an incredible amount of organization. It's a mind-boggling amount of organization. But it's very simple too, because it all's fitting together, working together. The complexity is forming into a unified whole, and it forms your biological self and possibly your non-biological self. As some kind of other fusion process happening there too. But it is complex, but it's insanely vast and complex. But somehow there's also that E equals MC squared element too, the simplified version of it too, that's happening within its existence, of it holding itself together so flawlessly. But yeah, it's you can get lost in the vastness, but the amount of power and energy on your body, we're running at 30 hertz or so, which is like, not hertz, 30 watts. We're running at 30 watts, which is like a deluxe Fender Twin, or it's like a Fender Deluxe amp, 30-watt deluxe amp.
Yeah.
That's how much our entire mind and body is running at. It's an insanely low wattage for the amount of output and the amount of energy that we have. It's ridiculous. It's extremely advanced system that we have. And we can entrust the advancement, the attunement of it, and the continued evolution of it. And it's it's a lot of access that we have to the vastness on our body and in our organism and in our spirit.
Right.
It's not emptiness. It's infinite access to incomprehensible amounts of information, and possibly the whole universe. But we don't really perceive our access to the whole universe. We just experience it in real time as a reflection of itself, maybe. But you could say that the number of atoms on our body could be akin to the stars of the universe. Don't trust my math on that. But if you do the math, you're getting to infinities, and that's kind of where we're at with the amount of stars in the universe, because it's been said that the amount of stars in the universe are several orders of magnitude higher than the amount of grains of sand on planet Earth.
It's insane.
So, yeah, you could say the same thing about the amount of atoms on your body, probably. So it's
and all that, so we can see and smell and taste and experience life,
experience and grow and
many things we take for granted.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I often have landed on this idea and say to people that the purpose of life is to attune each other's souls and ourselves to our greater potential, and it's like frequencies tuning each other up to reflect on themselves and just become more patient with and knowledgeable with existence, more calm with it, and also more active in the structure of structurizing society and existence and everything. Once you become aware of the issues, you want to put recycling bins and compost bins at the gas station. Do what you can. You have to. There's the knowledge of it. There's the calmness, but there's also the action of it too. The active principle of doing something about it, and it's all possible. It's just, and there's many gates along the way that seem to restrict you, but they're not restricting you. It's just a gate of evolution that we're getting through, and we must pass through. We must go through it. We must not go around it. We have to go through the gates. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
well, super good. Hey, thank you so much for your time and the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Let's see, Polyhaven, Portasymphony, Friday, June 13th.
Yep, that's right.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
Super good.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. It's perfect.
Cool. Super good.
Thank you, man.
All right, we've got a bonus round here with Lionel from Vinyl Williams, and I've got a few questions for you. And let's start with this one. So, as I mentioned in the bulk interview that we just did, my daughter listening to a lot of this music. Both my daughters, really, my oldest especially. She's 7, and she knew I was coming to do this today. And I said, "Hey, are there any questions that you want me to ask Lionel?"
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So, and I actually thought this was a great question. I really love it. It's very simple, but yeah, here we go. So, what is your favorite thing about music?
Wow. That's a very fundamental question.
Yeah.
I think you just go right to the core of kids,
Yeah, I love the way they think. It's simplistic terms, but it's much deeper when you're like, oh, wow, that's actually a really fantastic question. So,
yeah, the inexplicable emotions is my favorite thing about music, that it provides, that it can give you octaves of emotions that you don't even have words for, that you just have to feel, kind of like when seeing an animal before you knew what the word was when you were a toddler. It was kind of just an anomaly, like a blurry anomaly. But once you have the word for it, then it's more of a tangible object,
Right.
But what music gives you is the opposite. It gives you intangible objects or of intangible emotional, fields. So I think that's kind of my favorite thing about it, is the infinities of it. Like, it's kind of like the ultimate goal, like, of any practice, is to like create an infinity, like create a TV show that could have a million different possibilities, and all of a sudden you've discovered an infinity that can just grow, create an ecosystem within itself.
Yeah.
And music is just that, built into all life and reality. I think it's fundamental to all things in the universe. It's the lowest frequency. 0 hertz is a black hole, and everything above that is form, or is turning into matter, maybe, or a wave. But yeah, music. My favorite thing about music is definitely the emotional, like experience of it, and trying to create new words for what you're feeling, and trying to create music to create new words to explain the inexplicable. And Yasos really spoke a lot about octaves of emotion, like happiness being one, and then like ecstasy being the octave above happiness, and then rapture being the octave above that, and then there's 7 octaves above that that exist maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like those kind of things with music that that the affectual things from music. I mean, I'm obsessed with causal things as well. I guess I'm obsessed with how music is causal to all reality and all things. But I'm also obsessed. I also love the affectual, where the emotions that you receive from it that are like, like in certain places of the world, they have different tuning systems. Like in Thailand and Burma, they have a chord, or they have a note between a major third and a minor third.
Yeah, like micro tunings.
Microtonal.
Yeah, microtonals.
Which are new emotions that we don't have in the West, or which we don't have music. If we don't have music to represent it, it's just kind of like we don't have a word to represent it. And we don't really have a word to represent something between darkness and happiness, or between getting hooked up or feeling melancholy. Like that's kind of what that resonance is. But some places in the world understand emotions that we don't. They have, because their music expresses it. And maybe in Burma and Thailand, they have concepts for something between the dark and the light, something that's not dualistic. Something
Right.
that's we don't have to think in these. I think instead of thinking of dualities, we can think and instead of or. We can always think and, because things are always both ways, always two ways. They're never just one way. But I think it's the non-dualistic, unified emotions that music brings into form within yourself. That's just my favorite thing about it, I guess. And the frisson that comes from that, which is the goosebumps caused by music. Because it's like I'm addicted to it. I'll listen to the same song over and over again, and it'll give me goosebumps, and I'll just feel it, like it's just resonating in my spine and my body. And like I just, it's extremely, couldn't live without it. It's just I mean, I can't imagine myself. It's very therapeutic for me personally, and I don't really know when I need it, or I don't really choose so much. Sometimes I'm like, I need that feeling, but it just comes when it plays, when the right time happens automatically. And then I get that emotional resonance when the times are needed, just like we all do. And it's interesting to become aware of those things, but to listen where it's happening in your body, where you're feeling it,
right?
To be conscious of like the physical sensation and where it's happening, can describe a lot. But yeah, I think that's probably my best answer.
No, that's a great answer. I love that. Yeah. Talking about, mentioned earlier in the introduction and the other, you do a lot of different things. So this question could be not just necessarily in the lane of music, but whatever other avenues you want to do creatively. But the question is, what sort of advice would you give to just aspiring creatives? And maybe you can answer that specifically about musicians, but just what sort of advice would you give them? Like maybe for people who are struggling to feel confident in what they're doing, or maybe they're struggling to complete projects, or things like that, or maybe they're just starting and they are don't have some vast array of knowledge about their topic of choice, or their avenue of choice. So what sort of advice would you give?
Yeah, listening, starting with some music that you really like is always really good. Like just listening to the music that gives you that goosebump feeling, the frisson feeling that's out there. If you're with some collaborators, maybe you just play a few songs, and you just let it wash over you, the tones, the vibe that you love, that you collectively love, or that you just love yourself. And then when it's washing over you, you just kind of start to play around within that, and it starts to create completely unique versions of that similar feeling that you're trying to that you feel, that you enjoy. And you can start to sometimes even concentrate that feeling into a more concentrated structure, so that more people can feel that than the original song maybe. And like it's just it just I like using music as a blueprint, the music that I love, as a blueprint for the vibe, for the tone. Like you can hear you start to analyze, like, how did they get that sound? How did they get those sounds? You start to just play around, and you really don't need much. I've never had more than what the average amateur musician has, like just a simple interface and SM58s. I don't have any condenser mics. You don't need much. Garage band, no music knowledge necessary at all. Just play, just playing.
Yeah.
Because you can edit it later. You can be free. You can close your eyes and just play a MIDI keyboard, and you can fix it later, and you can edit it later if you want to. It's just totally free and flexible nowadays. Everything's so flexible, so you don't have to worry about anything. You can just be free, and you'll capture some things that are impossible that you'll do eventually, and it'll blow your own mind. And it's all about just kind of hearing that, listening, and you imagine how you'd most ultimately want that to be. You can actively think, listen in your own head. Just listen. You have a little sketch. How would you want that to be finished? Hear it in your head.
Yeah.
Like take that idea, and then if you could have a mind to audio program, you could just hear it from beginning to end in your head. Imagine it, and just and when you picture that in your mind, you can it gives you a roadmap for what you can do with it. It's all possible nowadays. Even if you have to use some samples, there's some sample libraries of chords too, because I can't play every chord. I don't use samples, but I'm very limited on chords, and I've been thinking about using some samples of some other chords that I don't know how to play, just to get some other emotions in there and just to play around with it. So you don't have to have any music knowledge. You can get some samples of some chords and arrange them, maybe tediously, or you can put them all on the keys of a MIDI keyboard and just there's some synths in GarageBand that are it's called cloud chords, I believe.
Okay.
And it has a huge chord when you just hit one note. And I've used it on a bunch of my old early music, like Tokyo Sumatra, the first song on my first album. That's all the cloud chords, all these amazing like drum and bass, like huge major seventh and ninth chords and stuff. But at the time, I didn't know what they just sounded perfect.
Yeah.
You can just hit these one notes and play these chords, and like incredible chords there. And you can just start to form the structure pretty easily without much knowledge of chords. But if you have a lot of knowledge of chords, let's say you study jazz even, it's good to negate the knowledge as well. And to just be free and just not think logically and just use your ear only.
Yeah.
Just listen. Don't think about intervals. Don't think about what should or can or would logically fit. Just use your ear. What does your ear want to hear next? What does your heart want to hear next? What does your ear want to hear despite what you've even done so far? What would it ultimately want to hear? Even if it's simple, it's too simple for what you can do. If that's what you imagine, if that's what your ear wants to hear, then you can then do it. But I think it's a. I was speaking earlier about how much time of dedication it takes. But like I said earlier, if you can find like a day to dedicate, a weekend day you have off, just say in advance, this, I'm going to dedicate 4 to 8, hopefully somewhere closer to 6 to 8 hours to work on the song that I've already put a sketch down or have like a fundamental blueprint for, and just try things on it. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to work on it. And I think just through that dedication of allotting the time, for me, allows for things to get finished and allows for things to progress. Because after 8 hours of working on something, it's just going to be further along. Even if you just recorded a couple things in that. Nathan, my guitar player, he'll spend 8 hours on one synth part. And I think I've done that too. I have every musician that's been doing it a while has done that too. But after that, it's going to be further along, and you got that ridiculously perfect sound that you wanted. You got it after that, and then you're always going to thank yourself that you spent the time on that. You did it. It does take a lot of time and effort, but it's okay to be patient with it. It's okay to take a decade for an album. I've been working on an album with my friend Rich for a decade, and he's so perfectionist about the mixes and the vibe and the takes, and they're almost all done, but there's not, I know how it is with the musicians, and you have to let them be how they are, and you have to, it has to be right, because you want it to be, you want it to endure your life, and you want to, but you'll find that all those little things kind of go away when you listen to your music back after a couple years. It kind of blows your mind again. You're like, oh my, you don't hear all those little imperfections. They actually, you start to love them, and you're just like, wow, I did that, like it kind of just it blows your mind when you listen to your earlier stuff. The amount of obsessive time that you spend on it pays off, and you don't really remember all of those things that you did maybe, but it just turns into a blanket that you hear. You're just like, wow, that was a lot of time and effort I put into that,
Yeah.
And there's always more that could be done, but there's a cap to it too. For me, once it has the full spectrum of sonics from low to high, then there's not anything else that needs to be added. It doesn't need to be happening the whole time, but if it's all there, if the spectrum is there, I hear it, I can stop. It's only when there's like holes that seem like there's something missing, that's when I add it. But once it's there, sometimes it's just my Casio through a wah pedal, which just has all these harmonics that can sound like a demented orchestra or something.
Yeah.
And like,
that sounds cool.
It fills in a lot of space, and I'm just like, that was just this one little like harmonic I heard in there. It's all it really needed right there. It doesn't really need much else. Just whatever your ear hear, when you listen to it, your ear will hear things that you hallucinate on top of it, and you can add those things, and it doesn't need much more than that. And the ambition of a project is really about the perception of the piece as well. So you can do a lot with, with effects and layers that bring a lot of depth to it without that many layers actually existing.
Right.
So
yeah,
it doesn't. I mean, of course, some of my tracks have like 40 to 90 tracks in the project file, but that's just because every vocal take has like its own track or whatever. I just like, there's so many different takes that I muted or whatever, so
gotcha.
they're not necessarily all used tracks. Like in the end, there's only really like 16 to 20 used tracks at the use, not too many, but I've been kind of pushing myself to do more, to layer even more, and just see where I can go with it, with full orchestration and background vocals, and just going all out with it, which takes extra days of dedication. Like, oh, I did the vocals, I did the song, I recorded everything, but now it needs the background vocals and just the extra weirdness. That's another entire day of doing those. But if you can dedicate that, then by the end of that, you're like, wow, that's finished basically. And yeah, mixing of course takes months of back and forth on different speakers and everything, but that's always it's the hardest process for me, is mixing. Of course, I'm not the best, but I'm really not that
it's
great at it.
It's a huge challenge. I've really struggled with that as well, because you mentioned your friend Rich
Tyson.
Yeah,
our project's called Case Mog.
Awesome, cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
How like you can kind of go back and forth on the mix, and like, well, I don't know, this could be louder, that could be put in that place, maybe we want to pan this over here or whatnot, and it could just kind of be endless. So maybe just a follow-up to this question, or this discussion talking about this, what do you do, like, and maybe this goes into creative stuff, just writing, not just mixing, but like, because that almost feels like a writer's block to me, almost like when you're trying to mix and you're kind of getting caught up, like, oh, you don't know where to go with it, or like, have you ever experienced that, and what do you do when you experience it, if you have, like, either writer's block, or like in the case of mixing where you're just kind of stuck on something, you can't quite, are there any things that kind of help you lodge your way out of those, or if you've ever been, maybe you don't experience that? But
yeah, I mean, I just mix as I go. I never bring everything back down to zero and start over with the mix, which is not what you're supposed to do. I think when you record a song, 90% of the time in the world, somebody mixes it, or you kind of get everything back to zero and then kind of mix it from scratch. I never do that. I like to get the tones as it's happening to sound like it's done throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly mixing as I'm going and then refining it in the end. But I kind of commit to my original mix, even if it's not as good as it could be if I started from scratch. I'll never know. It just kind of, like, I have demoitis maybe, and it's when it's your own thing, you just go with the demo sound. I never re-record anything either. I like to get the original magic of the demo. I like to get the demo is always the song for me, and I highly recommend doing that to people, even though it's not rational, because you'll know the song once you recorded a demo, and then when you record it again, you know it through and through, and you'll be able to nail it. But there's something about nailing it that's not quite right. You know?
No, I feel what you're saying for sure.
It's
Yeah.
the magic. It's that initial, it's something imperfect, you know, like in old Syrian pieces of furniture for kings, they would be abalone inlaid, but they would always put one imperfection deliberately in there because they know it can never be close to God. So it's good to employ some of that Syrian ancient knowledge. But like with a mix, I'm super anti tricks with a mix. Tricks. Okay. I don't like to make any tricks occur. I don't like to really like do any mixing things that like are like whoa, or like it's like whoa, it's like it's over there and then it's over here, or like the phaser is like doing this crazy three-dimensional effect. I mean, sometimes I'll accidentally do that, but I generally don't like to create any tricks in the mix of any kind of mixing tricks that would enhance the song. I generally try to step away from those. I don't know why. I mean, there can be incredible mixing tricks that definitely enhance the song. That do the mix could determine whether a song is good or not. But for me, the song is more important than the mix, and the composition and the chords, the melody, like the harmony of the song is more important than the mix. Sometimes the mix can sound like shit, but the harmony can shine through and actually make it more even more enjoyable when the mix isn't that good. If it's amateurly mixed, the drums sound like they're far away with one mic, and the guitars just sound like they're in the room. If the song is good, then it could sound perfect.
Yeah.
So if it feels good, if it all sounds good together, then I think that's the most important thing. So I don't really try to really like do too much with the mix that will like make it seem like it's more than what it is. I think it's good to be honest with the song and not try to cover up anything that it's lacking with the mix. I think if it's lacking something, then record it. And then there's not much mixing that needs to be done because you recorded it.
Yeah.
And if you get the right tone, you don't have to mess with it that much, And it's like, I don't do much, a lot of the guitars there's nothing on them generally on my mixes. There's nothing. No,
just a mic amp.
The mic amp.
That's it.
Yeah, I always use an amp. I mean, I did on the cassette album, I did a lot of direct guitar to cassette, which is really cool sounding.
Yeah,
incredible
for sure.
sounding.
Yeah.
If you turn the tone all the way off, it sounds like a flute. It's like a warbly flute on cassette. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've used those before.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. But yeah, I think recording something can be more valuable than mixing it, because if it's lacking something, maybe add it. Rather than trying to fill it in with the mix, you could just record that thing, or bring in another layer, or augment the layers that are already there. But yeah, I think I think it's cool to focus on designing the sound and the composition over the mix. And it's okay if the mix is wonky. That could be really inspiring for people to hear an amateur mix. There's nothing more intriguing. There's nothing more interesting than an amateur mix to me. I love hearing it. I'll just like, when I hear something and it's like, it's all messed up sounding, I'm like, I love this, like I really want to see how far lo-fi can go. Like, how messed up can you make a mix, but still be enjoyable, and or still be a joyful or intellectual or learning experience or something. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of amateur recording, production, and lo-fi sounds. There's nothing I despise more than just like a really clean, compressed digital mix or something. I don't know. It's just
doesn't resonate with you.
I mean, I've heard it work great too, because the song is incredible. So it doesn't matter that it's super clean. Like Tal Nacional, a band from Niger, they recorded this with digital modern technology, but it sounds timeless, So it's like Lo Borges made an album in the 90s, Via Lactea, and it sounds like the early 70s because of how he played the instruments, how the instruments are played. So if you want like a 50s sound, just tune the drums up really high and just put the mic, get a really wooden room, put the mic above it really high, and you just get the sound of it as your ear hears it. I think it's really important to try to, and also with mixing, it's really good to know what you're aiming for. So if you check out all the music you love that you aspire to the most, and A/B it with your stuff, see what is missing. There could be some high end that's mixing like super super high end that is in other music, like specifically hip hop music, that doesn't, or super super low end doesn't exist in your mix, but that's okay. But you can see what the differences are,
Right.
and try to, you got to know what you're aiming for. It's something that Shags Chamberlain has taught me a lot, who I live with, and he's mixed like Drug Dealers albums and Wise Blood, and he's just a professional mixing engineer that has shown me so much. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a mixing. Yeah, I've actually had to go through a long learning process in the last year mixing, because the Portasymphony album, it's all on cassette, and I like have 4 tracks or 2 to 4 tracks for like the whole mix of every song.
Yeah.
So I had to learn multi-band compression, which I never used before, and dynamic EQ, which I never used before, and to try to use what I've got, the limited amount of tracks, to make that sound as good as possible. And I had to learn so much about audio production, which I've always evaded. I've always just done the most simple shit, actually. But now I feel like I can work with the tools more.
Yeah.
People that have, I met a kid that was like 19 years old, and I was talking to him about dynamic EQ. He's like, "Yeah, you don't use that? Like, how do you not use that? Like, that's integral to use that." I'm like, "Man, these kids, they know so much. I don't know. I'm so old school with this stuff."
No, that's
But
no.
I just started with that. I never ever used dynamic EQ or compression really ever, very lightly. I just don't like how it sounds, especially never had a real compressor either. But I have been using this like pedal patched through my board through the reel to reel. That sounded really cool. A pedal compressor patched through a channel. That sounds awesome. But yeah, I think just recording and stuff, I think, is like what I always say is the thing. It's just the layers that are missing, and then the mix can just be experimental and just try things out and just make it sound like what music you like. And aiming for that is it's tough, but it's not impossible. It's totally attainable. Anybody can do it. I feel like even with free stuff, it's all possible.
Cool.
Pedals,
super good.
Whatever you need. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that and going into some depth about mixing and everything. That's really great.
Oh yeah.
Last question for the bonus round. What is, you can define this however you want, what is the most important Vinyl Williams song?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
what that means to you personally, or to maybe you think, however you want to answer that.
I wouldn't know to others, but I don't know. Like, as music is extremely important, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean, music is important to me, but I feel a bit detached from knowing the truth of my own creation a little bit. But I think I don't know. I really don't know what the most important song is. There's just so many. They're all pretty equal to me. I tried to spread out myself pretty equally with all the songs so that they all have a pretty, hopefully, somewhat equal amount of me, of what I can provide, what I can give in them. So I don't know if one has more importance than the other, to me at least. Like, they're all as one, kind of as one unit a little bit, because they're all the same thing that I can express. Some I've maybe succeeded in more, possibly. Of course, it's inevitable, but I've tried to be consistent in the songs, in trying to give that consistent intention. And so I think that I just have to say that they're all equally important to me. All the ones that are out, there's ones that are not out from earlier time is in my life that are still somewhat important to me. There's a song called Nora that came out in 2008, 2009. It's 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long. The song was released on anything. It was never saw on Spotify. but the lyrics in there were really the beginning of like my mystical voyage, and that's a really important one to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot. But I think all of them are. It's hard to organize them in that way. I think I just have to say that they're pretty equal. At least the ones that are out, for the most part, I feel like feel pretty even with all of them. It's really hard to pick one above the other. It's also really hard to create a set list because I have to pick the songs that I feel like are the most important or the most, just the best for live, and that's always really difficult for me to choose.
Yeah,
it's really hard. Yeah.
What maybe just branching off of that really quick, a more lighthearted version of that. Maybe not like it's important. That's like oh man, that's there's some depth. There's some depth and weight to that, right?
Yeah.
So, what's the funnest song to play live? Funnest. It's like I just have a blast doing this. Like, is there a song like that, or maybe there's a few songs? But what's the first one that comes to mind?
The first one that came to mind is Mithras, actually, which we haven't played in the last couple years for some reason, but it's the second song on Azure. It's just really fun because it's just totally unhinged. The song it's just completely it's just a ridiculous song. It doesn't really make much sense and doesn't really repeat itself. So it's fun to just play this through composed thing, and the bass is just ridiculous, and it's really fun to play this wacky, really fast bass part on it that happens, and it's just so unhinged. And there's this break. It just breaks into some moments of harmony for me, at least. That it's so weird and so surprising. And there's some moments where I don't sing in the song as well, so I can just enjoy myself and just play, because usually most of my songs are just singing the whole time, and that's kind of difficult for me to do it the whole song.
Yeah.
But the songs I'm not singing on as much, I can enjoy more because I can just step back and just like play bass, or Spooky can sing one part. Exopalace is a song where Spooky sings one part because I just need to take a breath for that, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's too much in a row, and that I really enjoy playing that song because he gets to take the lead for a little bit, and I could just play bass and have fun. Apelion is always really fun because are we gonna do it right? Like, it's I don't ever know if it's gonna be right, so it's fun to have the mystery, or the I don't know. It's always
mystery.
That's the most unhinged one, is Apelion. So I feel fun. It feels fun to just make something ridiculous. Just the most proggy thing that I have to give to the world, and so that's like fun to play. But yeah,
I love that you mentioned prog. I want to latch onto that really quick. I was gonna say this in describing Find the Hidden, the new track, right? Like, so something, I'll share a little bit of my perspective here of kind of how I perceive your music. Like, there's a lot of different things going on, or like, how should I describe this? Like, there's kind of a chillness to it. There's obviously some psychedelic sort of vibes going on, but there's also like, it's also kind of technical sometimes, and kind of pays honor to some prog stuff. Like, I'm a big fan of prog stuff, like just with some more interesting time signatures. Like, what is it? Maybe the bridge of Find the Hidden. Like, it kind of breaks from that 4/4 kind of feel into something different. And like, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that's super cool. And I just thought it was really unique. And anyway,
I'm counting it right now. I still don't know what the time signature is.
Yeah, I was trying to listen to it and trying to figure it out. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to give that a closer listen.
It's basically 6/8, but it's like a confusing 6/8, and it goes into other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it switches to kind of like a 6, like almost like a Celtic British 6/8 feel kind of thing, but it's off-putting because it lands weird on the upbeats, but it's weird because it's super untechnical the way that I made it. I just like improvised those chords on the keyboard that are doing these weird hits at weird times with a click, and then I just matched the drums to those. But I didn't think about the time signature whatsoever. I just played it.
Just did it.
I just did it. I just made those decisions when I made the first track, which is the keyboard track, and then I just matched the drums to those decisions. So I didn't really know. I still don't know what the time signature is.
No, that's cool. I think that's great.
But it's you just yeah, it's like you can play around with upbeats and weird things that go off the grid or a little, or it's on the grid, but it's like switching with your perception of the time. But it's not. It wasn't my intention. It was just that's just naturally what happened, which is weird. You know, I don't really, not really trying with that. But Alan, my drummer right now, he had a bit of a hard time getting that section down because it's weird, and I couldn't explain it to him either because I don't know what I don't know what the time signature is.
So funny.
Usually I do. I can figure out time signatures pretty well, but I just don't know with that section.
It's cool. It works really well. I mean, there's no like abruptness about it, even though it is like just a straight change from 4/4 into a totally different feel. But it's a very necessary sort of break in that song. I felt like, and it really served the song well. Anyway, just wanted to
and
insert that.
You're just you're playing a thing, and then there's a certain time where you feel like the vocals are happening for that long and it needs a switch up, and then I just follow those intuitions. And I like to do a big switch up because that's what I want. If I was listening to it, I want a big switch up. I want a shift there. I want it to be interesting. I want it to stay interesting. So, so that's what I wanted to hear. So it's just the direction that I go. But every song is different, though. Sometimes it wants to just go long. It just wants to keep going on that section for 2-3 minutes. Just don't change it. Just keep looping it.
Yeah.
And that's something I like. You have to honor that too. Depending on what feels good. What feels does that feel the best, or do you get a little bit of a slight bit of like antsiness as it's going? If you get a little antsy, then maybe it needs to switch up. You listen to that feeling inside. I'm a bit of an ADD person, so I kind of like when things switch, go into a different modulation, a different time. I do love those things, just to keep me interested with the stuff I'm doing. It has to interest you too, and ultimately you want to surprise yourself and be like, making something that's like something you really want to listen to. Hopefully,
no, it is. It's all good. Well, cool, super good. Thank you for obliging me on a little bonus round session here.
Totally, dude.
And great chatting with you. Looking forward to the Gold Celeste tour. Here when you make it to the lodge room. That'll be great.
Oh yeah,
I plan to be there.
Thanks, man. So, put you on the list.
Awesome, cool. Thank you.
Of course.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Well,
thank you, man.
Thank you, Lionel, for your time. And that's it. That's all we got.
Sweet. See ya. Peace.